we as a culture are wired to what's going to make you a lot of money and how do you get the right answer? And that is not discerning and living out God's will in your life. Because you can go be a doctor, you can go be an accountant, but if it's not what you're wired to do, you're going to hate your life and live for retirement. We spend a lot of time at our work, and our work is to mold and shape us and prune us. And if you're doing it as God intends, it's to play your part in building the kingdom.
Friends, welcome to another episode of Prosper, the podcast of the Sioka Center, the Entrepreneurship Center at the Bush School of Business. We're the place where innovation meets personal vocation. I'm your host, Andreas Widmer, joined as always by my colleague, Sioka Center Executive Director, Rebecca Teddy.
Thank you, Andreas. And we cannot wait for you to meet today's guest. She's become a great friend of the Sioka Center team as co-founder of West of Perfection, which is a boutique coaching and consulting firm. She's a former Fortune 50 professional turned entrepreneur with more than 20 years of experience being, she says, a no-nonsense, no-excuses leadership coach. But I want to add, from professional experience, also a very encouraging and endearing coach.
She's also a wife and a mother of 7 kids and the developer of her signature framework, The Ordered Life. And Mary Katherine is also the author of Made for More, a working mom's guide to escape overwhelm and honor God's purpose. Mary Katherine Wathen, welcome to Prosper.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm just so excited to be here and learn from you all. I've learned so much from you all over the years, and it's just an honor to be here with you today. So thanks for having a girl from the South.
Well, we love the accent as much as anything else.
I would always pull this excuse with people when they say, "What's your accent?" I would say, "I'm from the South." Now this is out the window. I can't do it anymore because now we know the real accent.
There you go. It's a little Southern
Good
twang.
old Kentucky girl. So we always start with a warm-up question. So since you're a busy mom, like now we know where the no-nonsense coaching comes from, right? 7 kids. But what time do you get up in the morning and why? And also, what's the best thing you're reading?
All right. Those are both great questions. Typically, I'm up at 5:30, 6 o'clock, just depending on the day. I used to, for years and years, be 5 a.m. every day on a routine, on a schedule. And as I've learned to live more within the Holy Spirit and give myself grace, if I'm up till 11 o'clock at night, I will let myself sleep till 6 and get rolling. But no, we get up pretty early and hit the ground running. Literally, I coach the high school girls cross country team before my kids go to high school. And so I take off in the mornings and take all 5 of them with me, and we have practice before the workday begins. So we're home and have our workout in on the way. We start our morning offering and say our morning prayers on the way to practice and run with all the kids. And it's just a great way to be involved with your kids. I think, you stay busy as a mom in general, but we talk about so much of running kids and how much time is spent to and from. And if I'm just going to go and come back, I may as well be there with them and get after it, get my own exercise in, and then you get to know all the kids and you get to hear from each of them and you get to pour into them. And I just think one of the greatest gifts you can give to anyone is your time and your attention. And so it's just kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, right?
So
I love that.
You run with them?
Yes. We ran 5 miles this morning. Did a few sprints afterwards, and I always tell them, "Don't let this 43-year-old woman beat you. Let's go." I try to take them down. So
I love it.
For now, I can still beat a lot of them, but we'll see how it goes. And once they get training, they should be able to pass me. But no, it's really a gift to be able to get to know the kids and to spend that time with them. And it's amazing how kids will rise whenever you raise that bar. They will rise to it. And I love to set those expectations high and then translate that not just into running, but all the virtues that you grow in through doing hard things and having discipline and setting a goal. And I think that running is such a metaphor for life. And Will and I always pray that our kids have enough speed bumps in the road while they're home. I think so many parents today want to remove the speed bumps for their kids, and you don't do your kids any favors. So whenever the hard things come, they fall apart because they've never had to do hard things. And that's one reason we really love the sport of running, because I always say our sport is your sport's punishment. Like, go run. Well, you can't really say that, right? So it's just a great way to be involved with the kids and to really get to know them. There's no technology, there's no phones. You're just out with You and God's green earth, right?
We're not just talking about running around a little bit. Like you've done it yourself in college, right?
Yes, I ran for the University of Kentucky for a short time, and then have done several marathons and half marathons. Yeah, so I come from a big running family. I have 5 brothers, and 4 of the 6 of us ran for UK. In fact, I have a brother that just ran the Cincinnati half marathon a month ago, and he finished 5th out of 14,000 at almost 39 years old. So he's really
Wow.
good. Yeah, he's really good.
He's a really good runner then.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So it is. It's good. And then you asked me what I'm reading right now. I'm just finishing reading. I'm finishing up right now. Do It by a friend of mine, David Nurse, who he's written 3 books, and it's basically talking about taking action. And I try to rotate a book for the body, mind, and soul. So I try to read something with faith, and I'm a strong practicing Catholic. My favorite book of all time is Lift Up Your Heart by Fulton Sheen. It has really been profoundly impactful in my life. Not to mention a few about this guy named Andreas Widmer that I recommend to everyone. So I have every business client we have, I recommend for them to read The Art of Principled Entrepreneurship. And many of them, the Pope and the CEO. So,
woohoo. And now you know why we invited Mary Kate
Yeah.
and Catherine to this podcast, everybody.
Yeah.
The secret teaching.
There you go. Rebecca, we're waiting on your book. When's it coming?
That's going to be a while. I'm not behind the scenes. I actually am working on a book, but I'm behind the scenes of it.
But let me tell you, that is one heck of an enabler, because there's hardly anything you hear or see from me that doesn't have Rebecca Teddy's touch on it and feedback on things. It takes, like when you're seeing also Sioka Center and everything, it takes a team, right? And we're a team, and we're years in the making now, right? Rebecca, how long?
Yeah. At the end of this year, we'll be on our 10th. We're finishing our 9th year. Next year will be our 10th year. Is that right? Or this is the 10th year?
So you got to have a celebration 10 years in.
We will. I'm already planning the annual. What will the annual report say in the 10th year? Like all the things that we've accomplished. But anyway, this is about you. Jokingly, we said you were on to cheerlead us, but that's not true. It's really about you.
The thing is, actually, you did write a book, and we're going to talk a lot about Made for More, because it's dearly centrally aligned with our vocation-centered approach to business. But first, I would like to get our audience to know you a little bit from a different angle, and that is that you're an entrepreneur. How did you become an entrepreneur? And tell me a bit about your business.
Yes. So I'll try to speed you up over the last 25 years. I started with a Fortune 15 company 11 days out of college and worked for them for 6 years. And then my husband and I had 3 babies within 1 year. We had 1 and then twins right back to back. Be careful what you wish for. It's funny. And we had a brief struggle with infertility. So be careful what you pray for, right?
Well, there's half your family, right? Bam, right there.
Right, in 1 year. And people always say, well, I had 3 in 3 years. It's kind of the same. And I'm like, if I'm not going to tell a mom that has triplets that I know what she's dealing with, because you just don't. It's all different, right? They team up on you. The twins team up on you. But it's a real blessing now. But at the time, it was, it's a lot to have 3 people that can't take care of themselves. So you just take the next right step. And the next right step for us was choosing for me to step out of corporate America. And after a couple of years of getting those babies to where they were, I don't know if I would say self-sufficient, but I can't sit still very long. I opened my own monograming and retail gift shop and ran my own business and built that up. And I ran it out of my home. I had a little shop within my home, and people would come here. They knew the hours it was open. And then I kept a little box on my front porch of people would drop things off. And it really became quite a thriving business. But what it really turned into was so many of the women that would come here, and some men, but mostly women, really just wanted to sit and talk. What do you think about this? And it became this mentorship type thing. A lot of these women were 20 years older than me. And it just showed me how rare it is to find someone that is willing to sit and really listen with you and talk with you through things, to let you process through things, and to offer you back a reflection of what you're even saying, because we can't see ourselves within ourselves, right? And there would be women that would come here they would stay 2 hours and they needed a baby gift. And my husband said, they don't want a baby gift. They want your time. So it became very clear to me that God had a calling for me to move more into a formal coaching and mentorship, which I had done mentorship for college girls and post-college girls in their 20s for a long time, probably a decade. We have a back deck that my husband built for us to just hopefully bless those that are younger than me, of a place that you could come and get good advice that's not your mom, right? Old enough to have some wisdom, but young enough to maybe still be a little bit cool. Now I'm kind of moving past that. But so it just became very clear. And so I got into coaching and mentorship, got some coaching certifications, did get a certification through Metanoia Catholic. I don't know if you all know Matt and Aaron Ingold. They're amazing, amazing. Huge shout out for if that's something you're interested in. They're a solid formation. And then my partner, Aaron, and I were connected, and we formed our company, West of Perfection, with Cecilia and Maria Spears. We just began our fourth year, yeah, as a company. And that's just kind of the backstory of it.
How did you know Aaron?
So I was connected to Aaron through my friend Maria Spears that I grew up with. And Maria didn't stay with us very long, but through her, I met Aaron. And we are opposite personalities and have so much love and respect for each other and for our own gifts. There's no competition. I know what she's great at, and she knows what I'm good at. And we have this really great mutual respect for each other. And
but you clearly come from, you come from an entrepreneurial family, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
Tell us a bit about this. You have an extended family with great entrepreneurs in it.
I do. And I come from a family, like I mentioned before, with 5 brothers, and they're all 4 of the 5 are dentists. So they all own their own businesses in their own right. But my uncle, Duncan, who you know, Duncan Taylor, started Taylor Made Farms when he was 19 years old. He dropped out of college after 1 year and grew this farm at one time. I don't know where it is now, but at one time it was the most profitable horse farm, I believe, in the world. But Taylor Made is a big deal. And Duncan he's a neat guy. He's brilliant whenever it comes to business, and he's just a great man. But a lot of my uncles, aunts, everyone have been in business.
There was a beautiful story about, and I have to say, I knew Duncan long before I knew you, but it was a beautiful surprise because we met not through your uncle, but just through our own career.
Right.
But I don't know whether you saw, but there was a beautiful story about Duncan, about Taylor Made, in the Washington Post of all places, about how the farm helps
recovering
struggle with addiction. And I think he's he's one of the great embodiments of principled entrepreneurship. I really look up to him. He's a brilliant entrepreneur, and I think you're in those footsteps. That's the kind of thing that you're doing. And I sort of see, it's beautiful to see somebody like you from a family where there's really so many generations and so many different gifts. You all go into completely different industries. Dentistry, horse farms, and coaching.
Horse farm, dentistry, coaching, those are not all the same thing. So, but do you think there's a family attitude or culture that around a kind of a can-do spirit? Or I don't want to put words in your mouth. What's in the culture?
I love that, Rebecca, because I think culture and leadership matter, which is why we do what we do. We specialize in leadership development and in culture. And absolutely, I tell my kids all the time, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And I think that your parents really speak that belief into you. And I know in my life specifically, my mom and dad just said, you can do anything you put your mind to, right? Within reason, of course. I don't know that I would ever have been a great basketball player, but, within reason. But they really did, I'll say, hold that belief and hold that space until you have the confidence to step into that. And I think that's a real gift. And that's a reflection of God the Father, of how he believes in us. Having a great father is such a great gift. Coming off of Father's Day here, but I would say absolutely in our family, that is, you can do anything you put your mind to, if you're willing to work for it and believe in yourself. But that the hard work ethic is probably one of the greatest gifts our family embodies. Everyone works really hard and no one expects a hand-me-out.
Yeah. I mean, talent helps, but talent only goes that far. Success comes more from skill and from effort than from talent. I always like to ask this question. Did you study business or did you study something else?
I studied corporate communications and political science and had a lot of econ and business classes within that double major. But a lot of it really is just getting your hands dirty and being willing to fail forward and ask a lot of questions. I've always had mentors in my life. Even in college, I would go meet with women who were 10 years my elder just to try to learn from them, because you haven't lived and you can't know what you haven't lived, right?
But of course, you go into the Fortune 50. Just touch on that quickly. Like, how did you get in there and what did you do?
So I was in the pharmaceutical industry, and coming out of college, it was a great field to be in back in the early 2000s. And you made a good salary coming out. And of course, you're interested in that when you're young. I think the older you get, the more you. I'm not really attached to that anymore. I'm very attached to what God's call is, and feel that if you're good and you work hard and you're good to people, the money will follow. But at that time, that's something that was I was interested in, making a good salary. And I will say I learned so much. The people there were so good to me. But probably the greatest takeaway, other than the friendships that I still have, was the training. The training at that level was second to none. You were in an intense training program for 18 months, living in New York, going all over the place. And I didn't really care about it then, or really understand the value of it, which happens often in our lives, right? But I think about how I draw on so many things that are so unconsciously competent for me now, or from that training that I had whenever I was 21 years old. I mean, you think you're a baby. I could barely get into a bar and had this corporate job. So really that training was second to none. And that's the reason they are a Fortune 15 company. It's because they are training their people to do things at a very high level.
That's fantastic. And I love too, a couple of things that came out for me that stood out for me in what you just said, Mary Katherine, were courage, curiosity, because I think this is something that I see in students sometimes, that there's something about the way the typical American high school education trains students that makes them a little fearful. And this is the moment right when they're young where they could take some steps, and they're like failure, quote unquote, would actually not be failing very hard. And yet they're very primed against ever making a mistake, and also against admitting that they don't know things. So that curiosity and willingness to learn, and the courage to take a step out, as you say, to fail forward. But then also I love the gratitude for what you've received and are taken forward.
Yeah, I would add to that. It's interesting you bring that point up, because having 3 of our kids are in high school, going to be a senior and 2 juniors. And I see that with our younger generation, which just eats me up, because they are programmed and wired to get the right answer. And I believe the role of education should be for you to learn how to critically think and how to apply skills. And it's one reason we had our oldest daughter apply, and she did get into your all's summer program, which I highly recommend, on learning to think and to discern, and we as a culture are wired to what's going to make you a lot of money, and how do you get the right answer? And that is not discerning and living out God's will in your life. Because you can go be a doctor, you can go be an accountant, but if it's not what you're wired to do, you're going to hate your life and live for retirement. We spend a lot of time at our work, and our work is to mold and shape us and prune us. And if you're doing it as God intends, it's to play your part in building the kingdom. So it's interesting you pull that out, because I'm constantly talking to my kids of, I don't care if you didn't get 100% on this test. Do you know the answer? Do you understand the concepts? I don't care about the answer. Do you understand the concepts? And are you interested in this? But it's countercultural, right? Because all their teachers teach them this matters. Your grades matter. And they're just memorizing to show up and throw up, and not actually paralyzing.
I love the way you put it. Let's double click on that in a second, but I'm going to take a quick little quote unquote station identification, so to speak, right? So a quick break before we come back to more of our conversation with Mary Katherine Wathen. So friends, you know what I'm going to say. If you're enjoying this episode or any previous episode, please express that by subscribing, by leaving us a great review, maybe a comment. We love to hear from our listeners, but we rely on your support. And we really do love to hear from you. And every little bit helps to get the algorithm gods working in our favor. So thank you for that. And then secondly, maybe you've heard on a recent episode, but the Bush School of Business, where the Sioka Center is housed, recently launched a brand new MBA program. And the program equips students with management expertise, hands-on business experience, and a Catholic social teaching foundation in order to use business really as a force for good. And you can find out more at mba.catholic.com, or click the note the link in our show notes. And now back to our wonderful conversation with Mary Katherine.
Okay, Mary Katherine Wathen. Let's talk a bit about Made for More. I have to say that I reviewed the book. You gave me an early copy. Thank you very much.
But you haven't even seen the edited copy, Andrea.
I haven't seen the edited copy, but what I can tell from the subtitle, although I know what's in the book, the subtitle is A Guide to Escape Overwhelm. So escape overwhelm. I guess the lesson in it might be a pretty hard one. Some experiential. Do you have any specific advice for working moms, especially with your ordered life framework? I think it also. I mean, I've read it, and I think it has applications for me, for everybody who's reading it. But you're specifically focusing on working moms. But let's start with the framework itself, the ordered life framework. Can you tell us a bit about it? What is it?
Yeah, so it's actually, just what the ordered life means to be a Christian of God first, followed by your marriage, then your family, and then your work. And I like to think of it like a triangle because you're likely spending the least amount of time with God, but yet He should be the priority in our hearts. You're spending the most amount of time in your work. However, it should be the fourth in priority. And, this book, I hope and think it could speak to any human because as humans, we all experience stress and overwhelm. I wrote it to the working mom because that's who I am and who I can speak to, the truest. And I think so much of our stress in our life, I believe like 98% of our life is lived between the ears. And it usually comes when we're not living the ordered life. We are living in ungodly self-reliance. We're allowing our work to become first, or a lot of times with moms, our kids overtake everything. And you are in the most peace and you'll handle what you need to in the day when you live the ordered life, have God first. Don't let the kids supersede your marriage, which it can be very hard because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. But I believe the greatest gift you can give your kids beyond their faith is loving their daddy well and showing them in the example of a beautiful marriage because they're going to leave us one day and we're still with each other, right? God willing. We often forget about why we married this person. We really like spending time together. We really have a lot of fun together. And it's really easy to forget and get lost within the chaos of life. I think so many times we say yes to our kids for so many things that just create more and more and more on our schedules. One human couldn't possibly take all this on, but it's created by our own doing and by our own lack of order.
I love that. I have to say, when I see you and your husband and the kids, it reminds me, of course, of my own family. We were a large family, and one of the things that you're not aware of when you're going through your own marriage, but now I look back, and my dad passed away, God rest his soul already, but he was very strong at this ordered life, and what you're teaching with the ordered life to the children is invaluable, because by loving your daddy or your mommy well also means that you're giving them the framework of how to deal with conflict, how to deal with stress, how to deal with growing pains, right, in the family and everything. And that is something that today is so rare, right? That the children come out. This is one of the crises of marriage. That people say, well, this can't go. This isn't going to go well. I'm not going to commit, and so on. And so your proposal is, in a way, to the crisis, marriage crisis, but also career crisis in a sense, is the well-ordered life, and the order is God, spouse, children, work. And if you have that, actually the work will even be better than if you do it the other way around. But Mary Catherine, I need to ask you, because as soon as you say that, half of our listeners are going to think, well, but she is an introvert who loves quiet and peace and everything. And I want you to have the opportunity to reply to that right away. So you and adoration is a bit like me and adoration, right? Isn't it?
100%. If you've met me, you'll know I'm anything but an introvert, right? So that's a challenge of growing yourself, of learning to just sit and be and learning to calm your mind. It is a challenge in and of itself. I mean, I have to break an hour of adoration into 10 to 15-minute segments, but it is the discipline of doing that. And God knows it's hard. He created us. He knows how we are, right? But you keep showing up there and you see that so much of what we think is a problem is not really a problem. And it's so much in our ears. And I really think it helps, my partner Aaron has helped me so much in this of learning to take care of today, what needs to be taken care of, and let tomorrow take care of itself. Right. And that's not the white knuckling. As you still need to have a plan and have goals and not just live on a whim. Right. But how do you have that balance when you tend to be a complete free spirit? Maybe you need more structure. When you tend to want to control everything and have structure, maybe you need to learn to let some things go, if that makes sense. But no, that adoration is something that you don't have to be Catholic to do it. I have lots of my Protestant friends that I take there. Say, we all want the answers. We want to have this affirmation from a friend, and we want to get that attaboy or attagirl from our boss. But the real answers lie with seeking him and not seeking someone on this earth, because they can't tell you. They don't know.
Yeah. And what's also true in prayer is that one of the things that the Lord will do, but you have to listen to him in silence, is show a path forward. So even with a very thorny problem, so many times I've gone into the chapel, really all head up and frustrated or in anxiety about some particular problem. And it's not like the Lord, I always say to people, it's not like he magically solves it. Like he doesn't solve it like I had a flat tire, and when I go out to the, parking lot, the tire is magically reinflated. It's not like that. But it's that he does something in you, as you say, calms you down, reorganizes. But it's more than that. He will also often open up a path forward. And we're so good at running to other people with our problems, and we don't go first, to the Lord who shows us, okay, the cross is still there, the problem is still there, but now instead of seeming insolvable and insurmountable, it's cut down to size, and I see what the right next step is.
I love that. I love that. And it's also saying, instead of like, this is happening to me, but okay, what are you trying to teach me through this? How can I grow and change? How can I learn to more surrender? And it's all part of our own pruning.
And it's this, my favorite scene in I think it was The Passion of the Christ, which I didn't like some of the brutality, but it is the reality. It's, as Christians, we're given the chance to reframe. And I think adoration does that. And there's a scene where Jesus walks with the cross on his back, and then Mary shows up. And what Jesus does is he looks at her and says, look, mother, I make all things new, right? That's the ultimate reframe. So, and this is not just happening at me. I'm a protagonist in this. I'm actually in the middle of this, and I act intentionally. And I think I often think of that in adoration, that's the image. And that's the example that Christ gave us. And so by creating meaning, which is not the meaning on the the focusing on the suffering per se, but on what we bring forth, what we're a part of. And I think that's something that you do beautiful in the book as well, because you're working on something greater, right? And that's why you put God first, because that's the greatest. And then you're working from there on that your family, your marriage contributes to that because it's an imitation of God. Your family, your children are a result of that imitation of God. And then in work, you're doing the same thing. And I think a lot of the entrepreneurs, you write about how a lot of entrepreneurs have this, what do you call it? Ungodly self-reliance. Talk a bit about that, because that's the false reframing, right?
Well, it's pride. It's pride. It's all pride. I mean, if you think about it, really almost everything is rooted back in pride. Almost everything. And it's the, like, not taking yourself so seriously. I always tell the kids of Jesus Christ is the way, right? He showed us the way. And look at the cross. He had massive suffering. And we think we can get there without it. This American dream of all things pleasurable and great all the time. Like, that is the way. And it's, again, not to just focus on the suffering, like you said, Andreas, but that when we have ungodly self-reliance, we are creating that. We create our own stuff because we make ourselves so important, as if we are the be all end all. Like, we're not that important. Come on. We don't have the answers. And in another couple decades, nobody gonna know who Andreas, Rebecca, and MK are, right? And it's the legacy you leave and the fruit of forming them.
The beauty is, of course, what I mean with the reframing as well, and I think you play at this in the book, is that you know how you're teaching the kids how to run and long distance run and all that. A part of that is, of course, suffering, but you're not doing it because of the suffering. The suffering is actually, in a sense, redemptive.
Yeah.
But our suffering is really redemptive, and that's where Jesus says, "Look, Mother, I make all things new." Look at the other side of the suffering, like, and I think sports is a good teacher of this, because then if you look at life, it's the same way. You know, Paul says we run the race, right? And the suffering we have in life is not suffering. Sounds so drab in a sense, and we're not masochists, but it's the suffering of growth and of the redemption of the world, which is the kind of suffering like you do in sports.
I love it. And it's really, the suffering isn't the thing that we get so wrapped around. It is the part that hurts so badly is letting go of who we are so that we can now become that next version of ourselves, hopefully closer to God and ascending towards heaven. But it's painful because you see your own lack, and your own lack is excruciating. We're wired to want to feel good about ourselves and to be so self-natured, self-absorbed, right? And I think that's where the real suffering and the pain comes, is the death to yourself, of your former self. And then it can be hard when you are a person that wants to grow and become, because a lot of people aren't there and they are just okay with the same person, different day, and don't want to do the work because it is hard. And so then you want it for them. That's been a big thing in my life. If I want this for other people, but you can't do it for them. And it's challenging because you see them being the same person, different day, or stuck in the same patterns, and people have to be open, and you can't do it. It's you trying to take control of what's not your responsibility, right?
Drill down on that a little bit, MK, if you would, a bit, just because I was thinking when you're talking about ungodly self-reliance, I think I know what you mean, but say a little bit more about, distinguish that from, honest fulfillment of the duties of your state in life. Because I was thinking as you were talking that I think every entrepreneur that Andreas and I have ever invited into the classroom, for example, you ask them how they got started, 90% of them have two reasons. One is a mission. There was actually something I wanted to do, something that intrigued me, something I wanted to share with others. And the other is I wanted to be my own boss. That's just kind of the entrepreneurial way, right? So if you say to that crowd, which is our target audience, don't be self-reliant, I don't know if they know what you're talking about, or if they find it appealing. So tell me what you do and what you don't mean by self-reliance in this respect.
Oh, that's a great question and great point. I think so many of us overachievers, self-starters, think that it's all up to us. And yes, you do have to do the work and take the next step forward. I always say, God can't steer a parked car. You got to get moving, right? But having this, there's an attitude to work hard and not take it so hard that all the world falls on your shoulders, and that the rise and fall of everything is by me. Really, it's pride. And, I went through that as a young mom, and still even struggle with it today, of I'm going to take better care than anyone else can of my kids. And I have to do all of this monogramming retail gift shop business because somebody else is going to screw it up, which is all pride, right? And taking everything on, all the cooking, all the cleaning, taking care of the kids, coaching the kids, getting up and running with them, getting my own exercise in, making time for adoration. It's just all so much. And it's because we think that we're that important. And we aren't that important, right? You want to have confidence and shine through, but it is Christ in us, but we can do nothing without him. And just working hard and doing your best and going for the overachievement, yes, but not taking yourself so seriously and thinking that all of the world is up to you, right? You and your whole world, and learning to ask for help and take things off your plate when it is too much, because one person can't work. We're not meant to work 24 hours a day. We're meant to have sleep, and we're meant to rest on Sundays. And I would say a lot of entrepreneurs and overachievers, I'm a recovering Sunday workaholic, because that's not actually what he wants us to do. And he tells us very clearly. I think a lot of times we pick and choose which commandments we want to follow. Like, I don't have trouble with that adultery one. I really love my husband. He's great. But, this whole to keep holy the Sabbath, maybe I struggle with that one. And we don't get to pick and choose. He says, these are the commandments. Let's follow all of them. And we know that will lead us to the most ordered, happy, fulfilling, peaceful, and productive life.
You're reminding me of something Pope Benedict XVI said, actually exactly on this topic of keeping holy the Sabbath and taking time to rest. And he was reflecting on vacation. He says, whenever we think that that it will all fall apart without us, we are exaggerating. So,
So good.
okay, Benedict.
There you go.
But to go a little further in that, especially because you're talking to working moms in particular, and you talked about in the subtitle about avoiding overwhelm, what would be some signs that a person's heading towards burnout and overwhelm, and maybe those kind of feelings of interior resentment because of taking? Well, I'll let you. I don't want to put words in your mouth. What would be the signs that that's happening, and what would be your advice about how to avoid that or to turn it around?
How to turn it around. I'd say avoid it, but I don't know that you can avoid it until you're in it, because you don't often know. Maybe you can. There are definitely things that I've learned now. I would say I've learned more from my 6th and 7th children, who are now 5 and 2, than from the other 5, because I had so much ungodly self-reliance. And with the first 1 to 3 kids, I really could handle a lot. I got a lot of energy, and, I could handle it. And then that just, you double down on your ungodly self-reliance, right? But I think some signs are that you're nitpicky with the people you love the most, or snippy. I would notice Will would come in, and I was jealous that he got to go to work and I was home with these kids all day, every day. And I would be, if he was supposed to be home at 5:30 and it's 5:45, I'm mad. If I'm being real, I'm mad. He's working for the family. What do you're 15 minutes late. I've been taking care of martyrdom mountain, I think, is what a lot of women live on. Right. And we do it to ourselves. We look at all I've done. I've done all this. And so nitpicky with those you love, feeling like your children are a burden more than a gift, which is a constant back and forth, because you are working for them all day, every day. You are doing things for them, but remembering that this is the gift that so many people would die to have. And that it is meant to mold and shape you and bring you that death to self that we just talked about is painful. And so if you feel like you're trapped by your children, or if they're a burden, and you start having those feelings, those are some signs, I would say, to be aware of. The people you love the most, that you have negative feelings towards them. And we're all human, right? You're going to have some of this. But I would say some things to ward against being in a place of overwhelm is the word no is a full sentence. And I think a lot of us are wired to please people. I just had a call last week of asking me to be in this mentorship program for mentoring entrepreneurs. And I took it to prayer and I prayed about it. And God said, no, you have enough on your plate. Don't add anything else. And really discerning things. And instead of saying yes in the moment, something that's helped me is saying, thank you so much for the offer. Let me think and pray about it. Like, my answer, if you have to know right now, the answer is no. I got to know. Well, then the answer is no. And Will, my husband, Andreas knows him. He has the patience of Job. And he has really taught me that if you have to know right now, it's no, whatever it is. And if you're trying to sell me something, whatever it is, it's no. But I think that no is a very powerful thing. And our kids are mostly, by and large, in America, over involved in things that don't matter. We spend all weekend running around to this travel sport and that birthday party, and they don't need all of it. And you don't need all of it on your plate. And you have to decide for your family what works. For some families, I talk about this in the book, travel sports is awesome. They do it as a family. They go together. For us, it doesn't work. There's 9 of us. We have to drive 2 cars everywhere we go, and it doesn't work. And just knowing and really on purpose choosing for your family what works and doesn't work. But I think less is more, and that we say yes to way too many things.
That reminds me. So just from, quote, the other side. So many of the people listening to this are folks, guys or women, who run companies, and they might have employees with large families, women employees, men. But let's focus on those who manage or colleagues who work with working women. We are all, we're Catholic, we're pro-family, we want to help. Give us some active advice to say, how can we actually be a part of the solution? That we can help, we can make things easy, also not make them like, oh, look, you know what I mean? You don't want to be pointed out that way. But can you think of some practical advice for somebody like me who has several women working with me who have large families?
That's a great question, Andreas. And I don't know if my advice will be helpful, but I'll give it my best shot. I think number one is just being real. Back when I worked in corporate America, I worked for 4 or 5 different managers, and there were ones that I could be real with and felt like I could be honest. And then there were other ones I felt like I had to toe the line. So having real, genuine, honest conversation of where are you and what's going on, because in our seasons of motherhood, we have, just like life, we have seasons that we're really busy and other seasons where we can step up. And I think that having that real honest conversation of, okay, your sports are over for the next month. You need to be able to pick them up at 3:00. If you can work from home for the last 2 hours of the day, or having that flexibility. And obviously it's very dependent on what your industry is, what your job is. But I tease that if you could give a busy mom 20 hours a week, she can probably get more done than someone without anything in 40 hours a week. So not staying to that 8 to 5 the rigidity of that. I mean, I wrote this book in 4 days because it's all I had. I had 4 days of quiet, but I haven't had 4 days of quiet ever in the last 17 years. Right. And so that's not to say, woe me. It's just, you will take as long or as short as you have. And so not being so rigid in that, but saying, what do you need from me to be able to manage your personal and your professional life really well? And how can I help?
Is it fair to say that what I'm hearing you say is that assign tasks, assign goals, not time. Like say, I need this by then, and then let them go their way, and let them do this on their terms.
I think that's great if you have that trust earned. Trust is earned and respect built over time, not just given. And when somebody takes advantage of it, it can ruin it for everyone. But if you have a great employee, and I can think of a couple I know for you all, they're going to get their stuff done. And the last thing you need is more stress of your boss breathing down your throat. And like not making them feel bad if a kid's in the background on the phone. That's the reality of their life, right? Hey, and y'all are great about that. We often have to, my husband always teases, you can't multitask. No one can multitask. And I tease because he makes a wrong turn if he's talking and we're driving. I'm like, well, I can talk and drive, but you can't. But, just those types of little things go a long way because I think that the human person, all of us, men and women, need and want to feel seen, known, loved, and heard. And when you say, I hear your baby, it's fine. How's Olivia doing? Then you immediately don't feel like you have to hide this precious little child to be able to get your work done. And if they feel seen, they feel known. And so those things of taking an active interest and being, flexible, as long as they're getting their work done and are a valued member, I think will go a long way. The relationship matters the most.
Mary Katherine Wathen, thank you so much for taking the time with us today. It's just a joy to know you and to spend time with you. Thank you.
Before we go, of course, we're going to put the link to the book in the show notes, but tell our audience where they can find you.
Yeah, so Made for More is on Amazon, and this book has just been out a week, I guess. I'm currently recording my Audible, so that will be out in July. And you can find me through our website, West of Perfection, the direction, north, south, east, and west of perfection.com. So that's westofperfection.com. And we just love supporting working professionals and forming and developing the human person at work. And we're always just an email or a phone call away. Probably everybody in America has my phone number. It's probably not a good idea, but I just love people, love helping people live a better life, a more peaceful and productive and happy life, and ultimately a life ordered towards reaching the end of heaven, which is the whole reason we're here.
Well, that's all the time we have today, friends. Thank you, as always, for joining us. We're grateful for your support. And until next time, we hope you prosper.